Girl, did you hear what happened? They are saying that Joe has confessed to unaliving Ashlee. Everybody was telling me yesterday, Gigi. I said, what? They said, girl, did you see that video? I said, what video, girl? They said Joe is admitting to unaliving Ashlee. He has finally broke. They said, I don't know what broke him, but he broke and he just exposed it all. I said, nah, I ain't see that video. Show me that video. Girl, I said, is this AI? Is this AI? Honey, y'all love AI. So I'm going to show you guys this video. Let's react to it. Do I believe it? I don't believe it. But yesterday, y'all got so mad at me because I don't be believing a lot of stuff that y'all be believing. Look, y'all gonna let me have my freedom of speech and y'all gonna allow me to believe how I want to believe. I let y'all believe how y'all want to believe. I will still react to it, but I don't believe the hype, all right? So this is what they're saying. They're saying that Joe is confessing. Maybe they got some inside scoop. I still don't believe it, though. Comment, let us know what you guys think about this. Let's watch it. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe here at Juicy Leaks TV. You may say, well, if you don't believe it, then why are you reporting it? Because my audience like to watch it. A few of my audience members say, you gotta react to this. Now, those audience members, I have some people in my audience that probably like the same shit they like, so I'm going to give them a chance to look at it too. All right, so let's watch it. Let's see what's going on. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe. Let's take it back to the top.
Yo, what's up everyone? Listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you isn't just another update. This is the kind of revelation that flips an entire case on its head. Something just dropped that nobody saw coming. And trust me, it changes everything we thought we understood about the Ashlee Jenae case and that mysterious night in Zanzibar. Joe McCann has finally stepped out of the shadows. And no, this isn't speculation or rumor. This is a full-blown confession, the kind he's been dodging, denying, and shutting down for weeks. But now, he's talking. And what he's admitting to is sending shockwaves through this entire situation. For the first time ever, Joe isn't hiding behind silence, lawyers, or carefully crafted statements. He's speaking in his own voice, owning up to actions he once completely rejected. And what he revealed, no one expected to hear this, especially not from him. This isn't just another twist. This is the turning point. The moment where the story shifts, where the truth starts breaking through the cracks, and where justice for Ashlee, Jenae, and her devastated family finally feels within reach. People have been demanding answers since day one, and now we might finally be staring at them. So let's break this down piece by piece. What exactly he said, what it really means beneath the surface, and why this changes everything for those who've been following every detail of this case. After weeks of silence, dodging responsibility, and refusing to face any serious scrutiny, Joe suddenly reappears. And not quietly. He delivers a confession that isn't vague, isn't filtered, and definitely isn't scripted by a legal team. This is raw, direct, and disturbingly specific. He admits to actions he personally carried out, decisions he knowingly made, and consequences he can no longer run from. He openly confesses to masterminding a calculated cover-up. Not only that, he reveals how he worked hand-in-hand with resort staff to fabricate a false narrative, one designed to mislead everyone about what truly happened that night. But it doesn't stop there. He admits to intentionally spreading damaging lies about Ashlee, twisting her image to deflect suspicion away from himself. He acknowledges withholding crucial information from her grieving family, keeping them in the dark during the most painful moments of their lives. And then comes the motive, financial desperation. He lays it out clearly, exposing the pressure and reasoning behind his actions. On top of that, he confesses to multiple coordinated efforts to obstruct justice, actively working to derail any investigation that could expose the truth. And when you really sit with what he's saying, when you let those words sink in, you realize this isn't just another statement. This is the moment everything cracks open. The truth, buried for so long, is finally forcing its way into the light. His first major admission? That argument in the Zanzibar villa wasn't some small disagreement or harmless fight. No, it was something far more intense, far more serious than anyone was originally led to believe. And then the story takes an even darker turn. Because Joe doesn't just stop at vague admissions, he goes further, deeper, into details that completely shatter the version of events we were originally fed. He admits that the argument that night wasn't just verbal, it turned physical. He acknowledges that he became aggressive, that things spiraled out of control faster than he could handle, and that in that moment, he lost grip on everything, his temper, his judgment, and ultimately, the situation itself. For the first time, he openly admits to crossing a line he had never publicly addressed before, a line that, disturbingly, wasn't entirely new in his past. And that admission? That's the trigger point. The spark that set everything else in motion. Because now, he's no longer distancing himself, he's placing himself right at the center of what happened. He's admitting that his own actions, his own violence, created the chain reaction that led to Ashlee's death that night. That changes everything. But it doesn't stop there, because what comes next is just as explosive. Joe goes on to reveal that the entire timeline we were given, the one authorities presented, the one the public believed, wasn't just flawed, it was completely manufactured. According to him, it was built from the ground up as part of a deliberate plan. He admits that he didn't act alone, that others were involved, and together they carefully constructed a false sequence of events to mislead everyone. That story about the staff member needing a phone charger and suddenly discovering Ashlee? He now claims it was never real. It was scripted, designed. A perfectly placed distraction meant to give him an airtight alibi. Every detail, every movement, every timestamp, it was all planned to make it seem impossible for him to be involved. And what's even more chilling is that he describes how specific staff members were positioned at specific times to reinforce this narrative, like pieces in a carefully arranged puzzle. He admits to coordinating directly with resort employees, ensuring that everyone played their part, that no one stepped out of line, and that the story remained consistent no matter what questions were asked. This wasn't panic, this was precision. A calculated effort to control the narrative from the very beginning. And then comes the part that hits even harder, because Joe doesn't try to distance himself from the cover-up. He owns it. Completely. He admits that he wasn't just aware of what was happening, he was leading it. From the moment the incident occurred, he was actively directing what would be said, what would be hidden, and who needed to stay silent. He confesses to contacting staff immediately, having detailed conversations about what version of events would be presented to authorities, and making sure that anyone who knew too much kept their mouths shut. He admits to protecting the story at all costs, no matter what evidence might surface later. In his own words, this was about maintaining control, about making sure the truth never had a chance to come out. What he's describing here isn't just manipulation, it's a full-scale obstruction of justice. Coordinating silence, influencing witnesses, and interfering with any real investigation before it could even begin. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, he drops another bombshell. Those rumors that spread online about Ashlee? The ones that painted her in a completely different light, that shifted public opinion and created doubt? He admits he started them. He confesses to being the original source behind those escort allegations, revealing that it wasn't random gossip. It was intentional. He says he worked behind the scenes to push that narrative, to make sure it reached social media, to make sure people started questioning who Ashlee really was. And why? Because if her image could be damaged, if people saw her differently, then maybe they wouldn't look as closely at what actually happened to her. Maybe they wouldn't ask the right questions. He admits this was all part of a strategy, a deliberate attempt to control perception, to redirect attention, to protect himself. By reshaping how the world saw Ashlee, he believed he could reshape the entire story. And that might be one of the most calculated moves of all. And just when you think the truth couldn't get any more disturbing, he takes it even further, straight into territory that feels calculated, cold, and almost unbelievable. He openly admits that tearing down Ashlee's reputation wasn't accidental. It was strategy. A deliberate move. A defense mechanism designed to protect himself by destroying how the world saw her. This wasn't panic. This was planning. Then he pulls back the curtain on his financial reality, and it's nothing short of a collapse. He reveals that his crypto fund, Asymmetric, wasn't just struggling. It was falling apart in real time. Millions were vanishing, investors were bleeding money, and the pressure was closing in from every direction. Legal trouble was looming, reputations were crumbling, and he was staring straight at financial ruin. He admits he was desperate for a way out, for a reset, for something big enough to flip his situation overnight. And while he stops just short of spelling everything out, the implication hangs heavy in the air. He admits he had motive. He had resources. And most importantly, he had timing. Everything aligned at the exact moment he needed it to. That alone raises questions that are impossible to ignore. But then comes another detail that's impossible to overlook: the way he handled communication with Ashlee's family. He admits he waited. Not minutes, not even a couple of hours, but 11 full hours before reaching out. 11 hours of silence while her loved ones were completely unaware of what was happening. And when he finally did make that call, he admits he wasn't honest. He was vague, evasive, holding back critical information that any family would be desperate to hear in a moment like that. He confesses that during those crucial hours, his priority wasn't helping Ashlee or informing her family. It was protecting himself, managing the situation, buying time. He admits his silence wasn't confusion. It was intentional, strategic. And when you hear that, it raises one unavoidable question. Would an innocent person ever act that way? Then the confession shifts into even more chilling territory, because he begins talking about the autopsy. He admits he knew the results. He knew exactly what medical professionals concluded about the cause of death. And not only that, he was involved in decisions about what would happen with that information. He confesses that those results were deliberately kept from the public, and even from Ashlee's own family. He admits that the official story didn't match what the autopsy actually revealed. That the truth was buried, hidden away, because if it came out, it would expose everything. He acknowledges his role in keeping that truth locked down, in preventing it from becoming public knowledge. That's not just secrecy, that's concealment at the highest level. And then, almost as if building a complete profile of himself, he begins admitting to a pattern, a history that paints a much darker picture. He confesses that aggression wasn't new, that in past relationships, including his first marriage, there were incidents of violence, that his partner feared him, feared his temper. He even admits to walking away during one of the most vulnerable moments imaginable, leaving while she was pregnant with their second child. This isn't a one-time loss of control. According to his own words, it's a pattern, a cycle of behavior that follows him from one relationship to another. He admits he's capable of aggression when things don't go his way, and that history, whether people want to face it or not, adds another layer to everything that happened that night. But one of the most explosive parts of this entire confession comes when he starts talking about his connections. He admits he wasn't just another visitor in Zanzibar. He had relationships, influence, access to people in positions of authority. He confesses that being a frequent visitor, combined with his financial status, gave him advantages that others simply don't have. And according to him, those advantages mattered. He admits he was able to use those connections to shape how the situation was handled, to influence how the investigation unfolded. He confesses that certain individuals in power didn't push as hard as they should have, that things weren't examined as closely as they could have been. And when you hear that, it suggests something even bigger, that the truth may not have just been hidden, it may have been allowed to stay hidden. This is the moment everything finally shifts. After weeks of confusion, silence, and unanswered questions, the truth is no longer hiding in the shadows. It's out in the open. What we're seeing right now isn't just another update in the case. It's a complete turning point. Every word of that confession is now being analyzed, broken down, and questioned by experts, investigators, and people around the world who have been demanding answers from day one. The narrative has changed, and it's clear that things will never go back to what they were before. For Ashlee's family, this is the validation they've been fighting for. The confirmation that what they were told wasn't the full story. For the public, it proves that those doubts and suspicions were never baseless. And for justice, this could be the beginning of real accountability, where actions finally meet consequences. But this is far from over. In fact, it feels like we're only at the beginning of something much bigger. So if you want to stay updated on every twist, every revelation, and every major development in this case, make sure you don't miss out. Hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, share this with others, and subscribe to the channel, because what comes next, you won't want to miss.